How much life is left for the Miami Dolphins defense as we enter the final 4-game stretch? We're exploring that here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, and the author of Touchdown Miami, plus the NFL draft lead for the 33rd team. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to our everydayers because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it. Here on the Locked On Network, today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by Prize Picks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code in all lowercase LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5. The Dolphins, coming off of an underwhelming performance defensively against the New York Jets, is probably a fair way to describe Aaron Rodgers passing for 339 yards with a 104 passer rating and a pair of wide receivers that both had explosive plays down the field and were targeted a combined 21 times for a combined 16 receptions and 223 yards and a touchdown. And Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. I did all that math off the top of my head and all that together. I'm really proud of myself for it. I hope you are too. But not the best showing for Miami defensively. A lot of yards, 402 yards conceded at home to the Jets. How much of this is Aaron Rodgers and a savvy quarterback? How much of this is the wide receivers that the Jets were able to put on the field and the matchups that you can play? How concerning is that the rest of the way? These are all big-time questions. And what I want to do is I want to look at how much life I think is left in each level of the Dolphins' defense. Defensive line, linebackers, and secondary. How much juice do you have with the Dolphins entering a critical 4-game stretch, including a game in Houston on the road against a team that's coming off a bye? That's a rough draw for the Miami Dolphins, particularly on defense. Now, I do think the Jets' defense in particular with Aaron Rodgers did do some things with taking advantage of the Dolphins wanting to match Jalen Ramsey against Garrett Wilson, and Ramsey won the matchups last year, because Garrett Wilson had some opportunities and got open but didn't get the football. It's just honestly reflecting back on the tape of what happened when these two teams played last year. Jets quarterback play was awful. Now, Jets quarterback play this year has generally not been good, but you played the kind of quarterback that's going to get up to the line of scrimmage and recognize man-to-man opportunities and recognize when there's an opportunity to take a shot on a guy. And they did that. And the Dolphins couldn't get Aaron Rodgers with consistent pressure, even though they sacked him 3 times, courtesy of Zach Sieler and his efforts defensively. Jordyn Brooks, obviously, with the extended play along the sideline. That was like a 4th effort sack. So the Jets did have some variables that I think other teams will not. Plus a quarterback that's going against a defense that has its limitations. But you got 4 games left and you're trying to win them all. If you want to get double-digit wins again and have an opportunity to play an extra football game or potentially more than that. Not saying it's going to happen. Please don't come at me. I'm just saying that's the objective that they're working towards. And you, of course, have the Texans next on the schedule. So here's the snap counts for the Dolphins on the defensive line against the Jets. Zach Sieler took 82% of snaps, plus another 12 on special teams. So he took 68 snaps defensively on Sunday. Emmanuel Ogbah took 47 on defense. You had Calais Campbell took 43. Deshaun Hand took 38. Chop Robinson took 37. Benito Jones took 36. Quentin Bell took 26. And Neil Farrell played 3. I would say, ironically enough, for all the questions about the defensive interior, the emergence and what you've got from a level of play perspective over the past 2 months in stretches and spurts from both Deshaun Hand and Benito Jones, I probably feel like it's the group I'm the least concerned about. You just got to not put Neil Farrell on the field. It's not a coincidence Jets had one of their big runs of the day, and Neil Farrell happened to be out there for one of the three reps that he had and got cut off on the backside of an inside run, where if he gets down the line of scrimmage and fights over the top of the block, he's going to make the tackle of the line of scrimmage for a 2-yard gain. But you have Sieler, Campbell, Hand, Benito Jones. All four of those guys in certain stretches of play, maybe not all playing their best football right now, but it's a group of four that I feel really good about your ability to rotate. It's the unit I'm probably the least concerned about right now with where things stand for the Dolphins. Now, Emmanuel Ogbah taking 47 snaps and playing 70% of your snaps defensively. The value proposition there is not particularly good. I love to live in a world where Chop Robinson is passing him in snaps. It's about another 10 to 12 opportunities. And I know some of those opportunities against teams that play heavy personnel, like what San Francisco is going to give you in 2 weeks, that you're going to have challenges of winning the point of attack on the edge and having success defending the run. But, and I respect the fact that Emmanuel Ogbah is playing through injury. But if you're just being honest about what the ROI is for those opportunities and how it looks on the field, you're not getting a particularly strong level of production out of that spot. Does Bradley Chubb factor in here? I think that's the wild card. He's obviously got to get up to speed and play. And I don't need Bradley Chubb to play 47 snaps. If you told me Emmanuel Ogbah is going to play 30 and Bradley Chubb plays 15, and those 15 come on 3rd and 6 plus, I'm going to live with it. And I'm going to be good with it. And I think that that's probably the realistic expectation for what, if you activated Bradley Chubb, what it would look like. But I think you need that. And it's a nice ace in the hole to have in your back pocket with where the Dolphins are at right now if they keep winning football games. I don't know that it's going to happen in time for Houston. I'm fascinated to see what they ultimately choose to do here, because this is a big contract that there's a potential out of, with $10 million in injury guarantees for a player that's coming back off of an ACL plus, as Mike McDaniel described it, and you're almost you're a few weeks away from a full 365-day recovery window. And you're on the outside looking in the playoffs. Like, it's not an easy call to make. Quentin Bell, not quite there yet. Really nice, fun developmental player. I hope he continues to get looks here and has chances and opportunities to grow. Probably, frankly, playing too much if he's playing 40% of your defensive snaps. Chop Robinson would love to get a little bit of a bump there, but if it's going to come at the expense of Emmanuel Ogbah, you just know there's going to be some rundown situations where Chop's going to have to level up his game. Or you can bump Calais Campbell out there, but then you're stretching your interior defensive line rotation thin. It's the problem solving with this group is the challenge. I don't think this is necessarily a group, particularly if you get Bradley Chubb back, where I'm going to say, y'all just don't have enough, you're outgunned. I think they're outgunned in the outside pass rush room right now. And Chop Robinson can only do so much. But you have a player that can come back and ease that workload a little bit and play a dozen snaps or a dozen and a half snaps and maybe, I don't want to say bail you out, but give you a new dynamic to that room. Very rarely are you in a position in December to be able to do that, especially with a player with a resume like Bradley Chubb, who injuries are the question. The caliber of the play is not. So I think you're solid on the defensive interior. And I think if you do get in a position where Bradley Chubb can come back and you can wean some of these Emmanuel Ogbah passing down snaps out, okay. I think we got something to work with here. I'm not going to sit here and tell you with a straight face you're going to set the franchise record for sacks in a month. But it's workable. You can do it. We're getting to linebackers, though, next, where the challenge and the propositions and the problem solving changes a little bit. We're going to get into that next year on Locked On Dolphins. Make sure that you stick with us. Locked On Dolphins fans, if you're like me, your holiday shopping list is, well, let's just be honest, it's not done yet, right? If that's the case, I've got the perfect gift for passionate sports fans in your life. Perhaps you've heard of Ice Shaker. Ice Shaker is now officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB. And make the ideal gift. It is created by and used by the Gronkowski brothers. Ice Shakers has sold over 1 million bottles. If you like Dr. Evil, 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and this is the gift you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL at checkout to save 25% off your order. These are kitchen-grade stainless steel bottles. They do not absorb the stink and odor of plastic shaker bottles, and they have a patented twist-in agitator that breaks up powders, but it's silent. It doesn't make that metal clanking sound like the plastic grain or the metal strainer bottle or ball that's in the plastic bottles that you usually get when you go to your local supplement shop. You can order your team branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use code LOCKEDONNFL for 25% off your order. Ice Shakers, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers. If you're looking to get in a little bit of action this week or this weekend, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. If you love watching the game, you're going to love Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy. Whether it's football, basketball, or any of your favorite sports, Prize Picks makes your holidays bigger and brighter. Here's why you need to check it out. You can now win up to 200 times your money on Prize Picks. This holiday season, they're giving away $30 million in rewards for Picksmas and offering 2 free picks in December. And when your picks hit, Prize Picks makes it easy to cash out. You can get your money in as fast as 15 minutes. I'm looking at the NFL board now. They're offering Patrick Mahomes at a discount for more or less than 1/2 of 1 passing yard. It's hard to beat that. So I like that call. I also believe I like Cooper Kupp on Thursday over 1/2 rush or receiving touchdowns as well. So I'm going to be building one out for Thursday Night Football. You can do the same as well. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly when you play just $5. Prize Picks, run your game. The linebacker room for the Dolphins. You reflect on the snaps that were taken by this group last Sunday against the Jets. Jordyn Brooks, 68 snaps, played 100% of the defensive snaps for Miami. Anthony Walker played 91%, 62. Tyrell Dodson played the other 8 snaps. So this is a 2-linebacker team. And they've dabbled over the last couple of weeks. You've seen like 1 or 2 snaps of base 4-3 defense with 3 linebackers on the field, and it'll be Duke Riley that comes in, or that's just not really the identity of the defensive scheme. But I think the challenge for Miami is the second linebacker spot. And I went on WQAM with the Joe Rowe Show and Omar Kelly this morning, and Omar asked me about the linebacker 2 spot opposite Jordyn Brooks. Let me say this about Jordyn Brooks. You can be objective about the hits and the misses and the swings and the successes and the failures of the personnel moves that the Dolphins have made this offseason. But if you're not applauding Jordyn Brooks as a home run out of the park hit for the Dolphins, I don't know what to tell you. This is a slam dunk success addition to the Dolphins. He's currently sitting with a tied for career high in quarterback hits. He has 2 tackles for loss off of a career high. He has 113 combined tackles for you this season. 5 passes defense, which is tied for a career high. And he's still got 4 games left to play. He is a leader. He is explosive. He is violent. He is a striker. He walks the walk, too. And he was the one who I thought walked the walk this past game against Green Bay on Thursday and said, I thought we played soft. He did not play soft. Jordyn Brooks is a great success story for the Dolphins and their personnel moves this season. And you feel really good about this being the world that you live in as your key player on the second level for the next couple of seasons. So you feel good about having that piece of the puzzle. And a guy who is playing and snapping at 100% snap rate. He's over 800. So he's played more snaps this season than he played last season already with 4 games left to play. He's at 100%. Outside of that, you have some questions. You have Anthony Walker's been dealing with, he had a hamstring that popped up against the Patriots, and then he missed the Green Bay game, and then he was back and he played, but you could tell he's still working his way back, and he's an older player, playing through an injury, and already wasn't the most dynamic player. I thought he got to his landmarks more disciplined and more consistently than David Long did, and that's why they made the transition that they did. But if he's going to play hurt the final month of the season, and then you cross-reference that with the way that Tyrel Dotson played against Green Bay, I think it's fair to ask questions. And it's fair to have questions about what the ceiling is with the linebacker room, because to cover the middle of the field with consistency and success, you have to be able to have multiple guys that can trigger an attack from zone drops and get depth to prevent the second level from getting gouged, and guys that can tackle consistently the catch point when there's throws underneath. And an Anthony Walker that's playing through injury, or a Tyrel Dotson who really struggled with that against Green Bay, those are not super attractive options. Now, it's the players that you have, and you can get into Duke Riley if you want. Prefer to just keep them on special teams. You can get into Channing Tindall. You can get into Chris Greer and the drafting of Channing Tindall. They're all valid complaints, but they're not productive conversations to invoke right now relative to how do you try to problem solve your defense the rest of the way. You have who you have, and you bet on Anthony Walker, who earned the starting job, and you have a waiver claim in Tyrel Dotson, who needs to keep a fire lit up underneath him because he played, after I think playing well against New England when he stepped into that game, he played particularly poorly against the Packers. I feel less good about it than the defensive line group, but I also recognize, or the defensive interior group, if Bradley Chubb comes back, I probably feel less good about it than what I feel about the edge rush room. But it's also positional value standpoint-wise, probably the least important unit on the team. So you can work around it. You can workshop it. You can mitigate by dropping an edge player that's athletic and firing a linebacker in a blitz and hoping to attack the center or attack the back and win on the back with a pass rush and win pass rush reps that way. They've done that all season. That was kind of how they were working around David Long. David Long blitzed a lot for that reason, to get him out of coverage. So I think there's things you can do to help mitigate and still have 7 on the back end in coverage when you play zone. But it's not the strong group that we hoped it would be at the start of the season when David Long was coming off of a good year, and that you were adding Jordyn Brooks to the mix. And you're seeing why Anthony Walker, as a player who's had durability issues as an older player, as a linebacker, you're seeing why he was available. And the Dolphins have a number of players that are like this. There's a few on the back end, which we're going to talk about next here on Locked On Dolphins, so make sure that you stick with us. You can tackle all of the NFL action this week with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page as where you place your bets. Visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet at FanDuel.com. Right now, the Dolphins still 2.5-point dogs against the Texans. The game total is still at 47.5 points. The money line has moved a little bit. It's up to plus 132. So if you like the Dolphins to win outright this weekend, as we're exploring their defense and the challenges that it presents at this stage of the season, but if you do like the Dolphins to win the game, you can grab the Dolphins at plus 132 on the money line. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The secondary. Look, the game against the Jets, I think if you're going to match Garrett Wilson with Jalen Ramsey, Garrett Wilson's a good enough player at this stage, and Jalen Ramsey with what peak Jalen Ramsey, I think, handles that matchup just fine. But it is a 30-year-old Jalen Ramsey. And there is a change in your strengths as a player. And if you're going to move Garrett Wilson around, and that means you're going to move Jalen Ramsey around, and you're going to get a fourth down opportunity where he's matched up in the slot and you got all that room to work, I'm not surprised he loses that rep. Jalen Ramsey also fell down. Just fell down in transition one time. I'll trust Jalen Ramsey to not fall down, although it was a great route on the perimeter with kind of a nod inside to a slant. It was subtle, but it obviously changed Jalen Ramsey's feet and hips and center of gravity, and then when he has to flip and carry up the right sideline, he's not balanced to do so. Kendall Fuller fell down on a corner route. That was just an unfortunate circumstance. You trust your guys aren't going to consistently fall down in coverage. So I take those reps with a grain of salt. But you had Jevon Holland and Jordyn Poyer were two of the four players on the defense that played 100% of the snaps at safety. Jalen Ramsey was the other. And then Kendall Fuller played 67 snaps. Kader Kohou played 47 snaps. Elijah Campbell plays 3 snaps for you. Storm Duck does not make an appearance. Cam Smith, obviously, on the back burner with the shoulder injury. And then Saron Neal did not play defensively after taking some cameo reps against Green Bay, but played 26 snaps on special teams. This is the group I honestly have the biggest concern for right now. And I think Fuller made a really savvy play to get Devontae Adams out of bounds at the end of the game. And like we just said, there were 2 plays for probably 70 passing yards that the Jets got just because your corners fell down. It happens sometimes. It stinks. I'm going to bet on that not being the new norm for the Dolphins in coverage. But Jordyn Poyer, it's been well established what this experience has been like this year. There's no reason to think that the caliber of play is going to change. Jevon Holland looked like his play was stabilizing a little bit. Did not think he played well against Green Bay. And then he has an opportunity. It's not a gimme. I don't want to be... You don't want to just assume because a ball hits a guy in his hands that he's expected to make the play. The ball gets through traffic in front of Jevon Holland. It gets on top of him fast. It's not a ball that hits him in the chest. Right? He's got to try to go down low and get it. But I would just say this for Jevon. For Jevon and the reputation he's carved as being as gifted as he is, and for Jevon going into a contract year looking to maximize his value, and he's been very transparent in talking about his contract and the desire to get one, and when they're ready and they pick up the phone and call, he'll be there, and he's ready to get a contract done after watching a bunch of teammates get contracts, all this, that. If you're going to maximize your value, those are the plays that you make. And they haven't been made this season for Jevon, and with the exception, obviously, being the Week 1 play against the Jaguars that saved that game. And because it happened in Week 1, it doesn't diminish the magnitude of that play. It was a huge play. But I don't think you're getting impact play from your safety room at all. And then you have Ramsey and Fuller, who I think are high floor and high ceiling players. Ramsey more so than Fuller because of the versatility. Kader Kohou looks like I just don't know that he's going to be a great match for a non-Superman heavy defensive scheme. It feels like there's still a lot of miscommunications in the slot in matching, zone matching with routes and depending on what the eligibles are doing and what your responsibility is supposed to be and turning guys loose and expecting to have help, but you don't have help. It's been a big enough theme across now 2 seasons for Kader that I just don't know that it's ever going to really click into place for you the way that you hoped it would as he continues to take more snaps and get more opportunities to play. He did not grade particularly well. He has not graded particularly well for me most of the season. But the guys you have behind him, you have to play these guys. Storm Duck, Anthony Weaver was very deliberate with how he phrased his feedback on Storm Duck from the Green Bay game. But there were some young player mistakes that cost you points, cost you notable points in that game without Kendall Fuller. And thank goodness we had everybody back to play Rodgers. Otherwise, this thing could have been worse. All right, you can't rely on Cam Smith to stay healthy at this point, let alone give you quality, consistent play. And he's on IR. So you're probably not going to see him again the rest of the season no matter what. This is the area I have the most concern. At least in the pass rush room, you have the hope of Bradley Chubb showing up. You ain't getting anybody come Bailey out in the secondary. Now, the good news is, I think you look at Houston, and I think Nico Collins being their primary player, he's a guy that can run. I think it's a better matchup for Ramsey than the short area twitch that Garrett Wilson brings to the table. And when you get to the Jets the second time around, I would probably put Ramsey on Devontae Adams, and then I would do the extra attention to Garrett Wilson thing. Put somebody up in his face to press him and play safety over the top. I would lean more into that the second time you play him. And obviously for San Francisco's perspective, Brandon Ayuk's out for the year. Christian McCaffrey's on injured reserve. So you have George Kittle and Deebo Samuel, and they're players you have to solve the problem for, but it's not the overwhelming outlook like you expected it was going to be at the beginning of the season. So that's where I'm at on the defense. The biggest area of concern that I have is in the secondary. The second biggest area of concern I have is in the linebackers, the second linebacker spot, and that's in spite of how brilliantly I think Jordyn Brooks is playing. There's a lot of work to be done with this unit in the offseason, but you got 4 games to see what you could figure out and problem solve and work around, and be game scripted dependent, and that's where I think the Dolphins and the methodical style of play of the offense is critical to not put this defense out there and have them playing 33 to 35 minutes time of possession on defense on the field. See what happens. That's going to do for us here on Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day. I am Kyle Krabs. I appreciate you guys checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. I will be back to talk to you all again soon. Go Dolphins.